there, everyone. It's Stephanie in the Secret Place. I'm so glad you're here. I can't wait to share with you today a little bit from Henry Nouwen. And as we move into the new year, I want to recommend this little book. I've talked about it 2 or 3 times in the last 3 years, called The Way of the Heart by Henry Nouwen. And you know what? I can't help it when I'm on a subject, I'm on a roll, and I just sometimes don't get off of it for weeks. For me, that is the way my soul is marinated, if you will, in the juice that God gives me from His Word. And so you might hear a little bit of a similar subject today. This is the conclusion of this book, and he says, "This brings me to the end of my reflection on silence. In our chatty world, in which the word has lost its power to communicate, silence helps us keep our mind and heart anchored in the future world and allows us to speak there from a creative and recreative word to the present world. Thus, silence can also give us concrete guidance in the practice of our ministry." There is little doubt that the Desert Fathers believed that simply not speaking is a very important practice. Too often our words are superfluous, inauthentic, and shallow. It is a good discipline to wonder in each new situation if people wouldn't be better served by our silence than our words. But having acknowledged this, a more important message from the desert is that silence is, above all, a quality of heart that can stay with us even in our conversation with others. It is a portable cell that we carry with us wherever we go. From it, we speak to those in need, and to it we return after our words have borne fruit. It is this portable cell that we find ourselves immersed in the divine silence. The final question concerning our ministry of silence is not whether we say much or little, but whether our words call forth the caring silence of God Himself. It is to this silence that we are called. Words are the instrument of the present world, but silence is the mystery of the future world. We've spent many times talking about words and how much words are a gift from God. They're a gift and they're a grace, and how much they empower us, and how much we can use them to glorify God with our lips. We can bring Him praise through song and through things that we say and declarations of truth. And, being a word person myself and spending so much time teaching young people in college about it, there is not much you can say to take me away from the power and the beauty of the word. I love it. But I think that that's where I've gone into this deep dive into silence the last 25 years. Because there's another side of the word, and that is silence. And now I'm not talking so much about contemplative silence or affirming silence or the negative silence we talked about months ago, the punishing silence, the silent treatment. There's other kinds of silence. There's a silence that is divine silence. And out of that silence comes the creation and comes the recreative word. Same with us. God spoke the word into existence out of the silence, out of that rich divine silence. That word brought forth life. Every pattern, every bit of creation, so beautiful. The resplendent, recreative reproduction of everything that God did, the way it just continues on. How much more fruitful and productive can one get, right? It came out of the silence, though. So I'm thinking today it's so important to remember that, we've just come out of a really contentious season. I say the word out, hopefully. We've just come out of a very contentious period in American history of the last 6 months at least, and more than that, but at least the last 6 months of a campaign here in our government. And we have many other things going on that are contentious and use words in debasing, abusive ways. I think that sometimes the best antidote for that abuse and those that the oh gosh, I almost want to say bastardization of the word, the abuse and misuse of the word, of the spoken word, is to just be silent. Like, think about some of the times of the prophets when the Lord put the coal to their lips and to the prophet's lips and wouldn't say a word. Sometimes our words, think about the words of the prophets, are so true, they're directly from God, but God says, wait, it's not time to speak those words. Because they become frail, almost meaningless. Even though they're infused with meaning, they become abused by those who don't have ears to hear. And so sometimes it is just best to just wait on the Lord in silence. That word silence in Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. That be still, that be silent, that word in Hebrew is a word that infuses waiting with silence. It's a waiting silence, waiting upon the Lord for his timing to speak. You know, if you've been following this little vlog for some time, or you've been following the Lord for some time, you know that it's necessary to wait on the Lord, that we can't go running ahead of him, though we often do. And how often do we just go running ahead and get ourselves in trouble and get stuck in the quicksand, stuck in the muck, things that he never intended for us, but we do because we get ahead of God. We don't wait for him. It's not pleasant, generally, to wait to say something when something needs to be said. But that's where discernment comes in. And discernment, it's very hard for discernment to happen, to get that direction from the Holy Spirit, if we're not silent, if we don't practice silence, if we don't have, I almost want to call it a deposit of silence in our souls, where we have been walking long enough in such a way to respect the word of the Lord, the power of the word of the Lord, and the power that he gives us in our tongue to speak it, and to speak truth in general, to respect that enough to seek him and say, shall I speak, Lord? Or shall I hush? Shall I be quiet? I'm talking about everyday experiences. Now, let's talk about family. If you're having an argument with your preteens or your teens, or a difference of opinion, and it starts to get loud, do you want to get louder and win because you're the parent? Maybe that's what you need to do. There's no formula for this, but maybe it's getting quiet before anything goes further and seeking God on discernment. What should I say, Lord? What should be left unsaid? You see what I'm saying? Same with your spouse. Now, I just need to put a little disclaimer here about silence and speech. There are those who, for a variety of reasons, will say nothing when something needs to be said. Let's say in a marriage where there is terrible verbal abuse or physical abuse or sexual abuse in a marriage, and something needs to be said, but the wife will not say it because she thinks she needs to just keep the peace and be silent. I'm not talking about being silent there. I'm not talking about just living in an oppressive, hurtful, abusive situation. Do not take this there. I'm talking about normal situations of everyday life where, like, you might have an argument with your spouse, and instead of winning, looking, breathing, and stopping, and just letting her or him have the last word, and bringing it up another time, the next day or that evening or that morning, when there's been a chance for a little padding of silence over an abrasive situation. So there is, and this goes as well, I believe, I mentioned before about the really contentious time that we're in as a country. It's not just because of the contentions over the recent election in 2020 here, but it's it's human nature. You've got that, and then it's got the pandemic, and we've got all kinds of pressures within and without that make it a difficult time for true communication and speaking in love. So let's remember silence as a tool that God gives us, a relational tool as well, not just a contemplative tool. Okay? And if you get a chance to read The Way of the Heart, let me know. I'd love to hear what you think. God bless you and have a great, great day. Bye now.